What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. It is Monday, and it is a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day outside. It was a beautiful weekend. It is like we're winding down. Today, I sent out a post. I was like, we are winding down. So we got to wrap it up. So we're wrapping things up right now at the end of June, welcoming in that new month, all of that great stuff happening for July. I'm excited about July, guys. I'm really excited. So welcome to What's the 411. Thank you all for joining me. I am honored and blessed to be here today on this wonderful Monday, June 28th. So, of course, without further ado, I am excited to have our special guest in the building, Nadia Clarke. I'm just going to go turn on my light because I'm feeling dim. So just give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to turn on my light. That looks a little bit better, right? Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, so let's go. Let's go. What's up, Rashad? How are you? Right now, thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about this conversation. On that fitness journey myself, I'm here for the tips. How's it going?
Hi, girl. How are you?
I am good. Pardon me?
Just adjusting the camera. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
cool.
I love your hair, by the way.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes. So, introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Nadia Clarke, Cordic. So I'm a what I call a holistic fitness trainer. I'm a fitness expert who specializes in food freedom coaching, which is kind of like an anti-diet intuitive eating framework, which I know we're going to get into a little bit later. And also, like a lot of people pivoted during the pandemic, so I'm also doing luxury fitness retreats, which I'll talk a little bit later. And our first retreat's in October. I'm also a runner. I run ultra marathons, and I also enjoy like things like strength training, trail hiking, cycling, but not so much. I do it, I don't love it, and that's pretty much it.
Wow, that's not a little bit. You're like, that's pretty much it, but there's so much. I seen that you're like training for, is it 100 mile marathon? Is that what?
Yeah, it's 100 milers. So this will be my third. So this will be my fourth. This will be my fourth. So
Wow.
yeah. So excited. Kind of excited. It's like exciting, but not really because it's really arduous and it's hard and all that kind of stuff. But it's exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
How long does it cost to, like, how long does it take for you to train? Like, what does the training look like?
So the training looks like a lot of a lot of running, a lot of strength training, sort of help build up the leg muscles and just like full body strength. A lot of like cross training, other types of fitness, but definitely like it's sports specific, obviously. So it's a lot of running. So hours and hours and hours of running. But by the time you run the race, you've run in your training way more than 100 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, like, how long does that normally take
So
to finish?
different, but excuse me. Usually, for a lot of the runners, the goal is to do like a sub 24 hours. So anywhere from 20. Everybody's different, but anywhere from 24 to 26 hours. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
A whole lot of crazy.
That's good, though. That's good.
Is it?
I actually just finished reading David Goggins'
You
book,
love.
and he's like yeah,
Isn't he insane? Insane, but
he
that's the ways.
is
He's like
great.
one of my favorite. Like I call him like a virtual mentor. I have that book on audio, and I've listened to it probably about 30 times. No word of a lie.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
He is like, and he did so many. Like, he's a runner too, so
He makes you feel like you're never doing enough.
right?
Yeah, you feel like you end up feeling like why am I sitting down?
Why? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly wanted to run a marathon after I read his book. I'm like, I need to train for this. Like, I'm not ready, but I need to get into the mind frame and get ready and just do it, right?
100%.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So talk to us about this fitness journey. Like, where did it all start? Have you always been into fitness? Like, bring us back.
I have pretty much for, I want to say the majority of my life. So I went to school for teaching. So I went to teachers college. I went to teachers college at U of T, and initially went to teaching. But before that, I had been involved in fitness since I was a teen. Like I did fitness and weight training. I don't know if they still do that in school, but I did fitness and weight training when I was in grade 10. I did it in grade 11, and I felt like I was hooked then, and I loved it. But at that time, you know, when I'm not sure how old you are, it's not never kind to ask about how old they are, but when I was growing up, it was like very stereotypically what we had, stereotypical like as to what we had to get into or what we thought we had to get into as young adults. Like I didn't necessarily know that I could make a career out of what I actually love doing. So it's not to say that I didn't enjoy teaching because I taught for like 8 to 10 years. I love that and I love working with kids, but it wasn't like obviously my forever career. So, I mean, obviously things happen for a reason, but had I had my time back, I would have gone like the kinesiology route and just went right into fitness. But long story endless, I've been involved in fitness since I was 16. My mom, who's very forward thinking, sent me to get my fitness certification at 16, like back in the day when it was like Ontario Fitness Council. And I taught at like a bunch of different gyms when I was 16 years old, and then just like went into teaching and then was still training people on the side. And then, yeah, I just continued to like, after a while, it became like I had two full-time careers. So then eventually I just decided to choose the one that brought me the most joy, which was fitness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's amazing. That's amazing. And kudos to your mom for doing that, because,
Yeah, absolutely.
you definitely need that push, especially at 16,
Yeah.
To follow your passion.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a lesson for all of us, especially if you're a mother, just to like, if you see something in your child, and if it's not something like, I feel like times are different, like how I operate with my own children. It's kind of like pushing them to sort of focus on what they actually enjoy versus what's going to make them money, because money will always come if you do things that bring you joy. You don't have to worry about money. When you're doing things that bring you joy, it'll all work itself out.
Yes, yes. I see somebody in the chat saying, yes, Auntie Ruby. Is that your name?
That's my mom, and that's my cousin. Hey, girl.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so my daughter's name is actually Ruby.
Are you kidding? Then
No, I love that name.
Let me tell you, it's making a comeback. My mom's so...
I love that name. Everybody was like, why are you going to name her that? It's so old-fashioned. I'm like, no, her name is Ruby. But it's beautiful.
I got to tell my mom.
It's a beautiful name. So talk to us about Repetition Fitness. Where does that name come from? Like, where'd you come up with that one?
So actually, I think I see my sister in this chat too, or in the thing. But I was going back and forth with these names, and my sister, who is pretty creative, she actually helped me think of this name. She probably doesn't remember. We were just like throwing out a bunch of things, and like when I started, it wasn't like, the internet wasn't like how it is now, where you just sort of type everything in and things come up and you don't have to think. They're just back and forth. And anyways, she helped me think of the name, and I just like, we thought about like, okay, reps, and I was really into strength training at the time, and I was thinking reps. But it's funny because as I've sort of grown, I've realized, like just through personal growth and just sort of being into different things now, the evolution of myself, that repetition actually so much more for me than it did in the beginning. It's like, repetition is the mother of all skill. Repetition is something that we teach our children, that if you want to sort of master a craft, you have to continuously and repetitively do something to be able to be great at it. So the word repetitions actually means, it holds so much more weight now as I've sort of evolved as a person. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, my sister helped me think of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love the name because you're 100% right. Everything is repetition.
Absolutely.
Right?
Everything is repetition. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, well, you've been doing this fitness since you were 16, so it's super important to you. Let's talk about like how mindset and fitness go together.
Yeah. So having the mindset, because you said you read the David Goggins book, and he's like the mindset like maniac. And it's just like, it's the idea of that, how it relates to the idea that you never quite arrive at something. You always kind of want to operate like a beginner. Like I say to my girlfriend, who I think is also in this chat, Joe, who's like, there's times, although I've been running for most of my life, There's times where I wake up and I start running. It's humbling because I feel like a beginner at it. I feel like I've never run before. And you always want to keep that mindset where you're a coachable person, where you don't feel like ego takes you over, where it's like, yeah, I've mastered this and I know exactly what I'm doing. I try my best to sort of like not have those moments where I feel like, yeah, okay, I run that 100 miler. I feel like, okay, that was okay. I did all right. Where's the next one where I can try to optimize? And I'm big on self optimization and get better at something. So it's the idea that fitness and mindset's like a metaphor for life, in the sense that you're always a beginner, you're a lifelong learner, and you want to try and get better at things. And when your ego takes hold of you, I'm quickly humbled by the fact that, like, when I run, sometimes it feels like I'm a beginner runner, and I know I'm running whether it's slow or I've got an injury or what have you. So it's that sort of mindset, fitness, moving, kind of melting together.
Yeah. So important because like you have to have that strong mindset in order to even pull yourself through doing fitness,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Because it's like, you have to, I always say that, whether you do CrossFit, whether you run, whether you cycle, whatever it is that you do, whatever physical activity you do, it's all the mind, right? It's like pretty much 90% mental. I know that sounds kind of cliche and everybody says that, but everybody
Mhm.
says that because it's
Yeah.
true. And if you listen to all the greats, the Usain Bolts and everybody else who's amazing, whether it's running, whatever sport, Simone Biles, it's all about your mind. And it's also about, I'm big on mental training, whether that's through meditation, whether that's through whether it's through affirmations, but big on mental training, because the mental training is 100% what pushes you through those moments where you feel like you can't do anything anymore.
Huge. Mental training like is good in all areas of life. Like you need that for everything,
100%.
right?
100%.
Jeez. Okay, so I know you do a lot on dieting as well. You have some different thoughts about
I
dieting.
do.
You want to talk about the food aspect?
How long do we have, girl? How long do we I, I hate to sound preachy, but I'm very much um, I'm very much an anti-dieter. And this is just through years of understanding that diets don't work whatsoever. And when sometimes people don't realize that what they're doing is within the realm of diet culture, because they're like, no, I'm doing Noom or I'm doing this. And diet culture encompasses a whole bunch of things, and it's not necessarily just food. It's kind of like it just it embodies a whole bunch of different things. So that's like number systems, it's calorie counting, it's elimination diets, it's food tracking, it's counting macros, it's keto, it's paleo, it's being unnecessarily gluten free if you don't have a gluten intolerance. Some people can't tell you what gluten is, but they don't eat gluten. And that's not to sound judgy. It's just, just to say it is what it is. Obsessive weighing, weight loss challenges. And listen, I'm not trying to sound preachy or judgy, because I used to do some of these things that I'm listing off, but it's through sort of self growth that even when I owned my facility, the studio that I had, the facility, we would do weight loss challenges. And through evolution, I realized that they don't really serve anybody. So Jenny Craig's, the Nooms, even people are going to probably hate me for saying this, but even like to some extent, the Apple watches, like the tracking systems that sort of keep us within that box of saying that you have to
Right.
sort of live within these confines, and sort of not coming into things intuitively, and always having to be tracked every step of the way.
So what do we do then? I mean, are we just having to be mindful of the things that we're eating?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do of, I just had this conversation actually with a client. Just sort of letting go, and it's hard because Rome wasn't built in a day, and we've been conditioned to believe certain things for, in my instance, 43 years, and conditioned to believe what we should look like, and we should fall within these rigid standards of beauties, whether we know it's like white and thin, pretty much, right? And just knowing that we need to let go of these standards, and we need to go back to our intuitive nature. Like, I gave my client an example, like if you think of a baby will eat. You never hear a baby, you would never hear your toddler say, my legs are looking real big, I need to start fasting at night. No, your toddler wouldn't say that. The kids do things intuitively because they're not disconnected. We've become disconnected and we're too busy listening to, I always say Tiffany on TikTok, what she eats in a day. It doesn't matter what Tiffany eats in a day on TikTok. You need to do what's right for you. So it's just being more intuitive in nature. And if you, some days like a baby doesn't hardly eats anything because they don't feel like it. And some days your baby's eating a lot of different things because they're hungry. So it's like understanding your hunger cues, understanding your fullness cues, and listening to your body. Eating when you're hungry and then stopping when you're full, and finding our way back to being more in alignment with ourselves and what's truly good for us, as opposed to being controlled by the mass media and the masses telling us what you should look like. What you need to eat, what you need to weigh, what you need to wear, what you need to do for a living, and so on.
That's hard, because we're so conditioned, right? To like, hey, you are this height, you're supposed to weigh this,
100%.
right?
And like, I don't know if you've had this, but in my family, if my sister's still on here, like my mom always said, you can't wear red. You're too, like, if you're a darker skinned person, my mom always thought red was too flashy. So we grew up thinking, like, my mom to this day hates red, and I consider her a progressive woman, but there's certain things that we were conditioned to believe about ourselves that weren't true. Like, I see that you have a beautiful short haircut and you're beautiful, but it's like this whole idea of what femininity is supposed to look like. You're supposed to have long hair. You're supposed to be thin. And it's just sort of letting go of what society's been shoving down our throats since the beginning of time. Western society, excuse me.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very true.
Yeah.
So how do we then, start this fitness journey if somebody is looking to, because, as you said, our bodies are telling us things.
Yes.
We know when, something's gone too far, if we need to tone up a little bit, lose a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
How do we push ourselves to really get there?
I think going back to the intuitive nature of things, I had this conversation with one of my girlfriends who's also on here, Tam, is that it's finding the things that you hate the least and things that you hopefully enjoy doing, and doing that. Like, just because Sally is boxing and she's an amazing boxer doesn't mean boxing is for you. Do you like boxing? No.
Right.
Boxing. Find what you like and then do it. It's we overcomplicate things in life. If you like walking, it doesn't have to be super arduous, but it's physical, you enjoy it, do it. Because I'm less about physical aesthetics for working out and more what it does for you in terms of your mindset and mental training and building resilience. Less about that. All that stuff, just like with the money and our kids, all that stuff will come. We sort of start with, what do you enjoy? Do you enjoy walking? Do you enjoy yoga? Do you enjoy running? Then do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And once
Sense.
you do something that you actually enjoy or don't really hate, you'll stick with it. A lot of people aren't sticking with fitness because they're doing stuff that, I'm trying really not to swear because I have such a bad potty mouth. They're doing stuff that they don't even like. So why are you running? Why are you getting up every day and running when you flip and hate running? Don't do that. Something else that will be equally as good for you, but you know what I mean? You'll stick to it because you actually like it.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
True. And then, so what about food freedom? I know you had mentioned that a little bit earlier, so let's talk about what that means.
Yeah, so food freedom is basically, well, it's pretty self-explanatory and it's pretty simple. It's just sort of the whole idea of the let go, of being, like I said, more intuitive in nature and not sort of being stuck with all these food rules. So many people are so entrenched because we've been conditioned in these food rules. Like, I can't have this, I can't have this, I gotta eat after this. Obviously, you want to live a lifestyle that's more healthful. Like, we should all strive to that, and that's good. But all of these rules and rigidity doesn't serve us. It's like, okay, I can't eat grains, I can't eat this, and you realize that some people are eating pretty much air because they've cut out everything. And when you're too rigid with what you're eating or anything in life, you'll end up, well, for this instance, obviously we're talking about food, you'll sit down and eat a whole cake one day. You'll literally sit down and you'll go on a bender and you'll eat a cake, cupcakes, and whatever because you've been too restricted. So it's sort of striking that balance of being more intuitive in nature, obviously sort of sway more to foods that are more healthy. But if you want a piece of cake and if you want some ice cream, you should have it and you should feel free and you shouldn't feel guilty. We've been taught that foods are either good or bad, and then we equate that to us being good or bad. Or, I had people say all the time, I was so bad on the weekend because I had fill in the blank. And it's like, no, you're not bad. You felt like having some, trashy type food, good for you. Like, keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? As long as you don't go towards eating, 3 months that way, 3 months of, unhealthy eating, that's probably a problem. And that's something else that we need
Yeah.
to look at. But for the most part, it's like, trying to eat more healthy than not, but still being free and not being hyper restrictive.
Mhm. So would you say like going on those types of binges or just eating like that, like poor eating habits have to do with the mindset? Is that a mindset thing?
I think when people go on those food binges, that's kind of tricky to unpack because I do believe that when people eat emotionally, because oftentimes, and I'm no therapist, but oftentimes when people end up eating eating emotionally rather and binge eating, it's usually because of some kind of like micro trauma. Like it's never what that outcome is. It's never usually, and people have a hard time wrapping their mind around this. It's not the food that's what you've turned to
Mhm.
sort of like soothe yourself. It could easily be heroin. I mean, I hope it's not, but it could easily be heroin. It's usually because
Yeah.
there's an issue in your past that you haven't dealt with and you use food to soothe yourself. So oftentimes when people are binge eating and emotionally eating, it's because they haven't sat with themselves and figured out what that actual issue is and then sort of
Hmm.
dealt and have other coping mechanisms. So that's usually what I work with my clients is like what's the issue? We do that through journaling and all these other strategies. What's the issue? And it could be multiple issues. And when you think of trauma, a lot of times people think of trauma as sort of big things, and they can be big things. It could be sexual assault, physical violence. It could be big things, but it could be if you're like me and you grew up in a very like in this I grew up in Markham in the 80s and it was a very Canadian white Canadian environment and it was difficult as me as being one of the few black families there and certain things happened and racial stuff happened and it's like that could be your micro trauma. You could have felt not good enough or you could have felt not pretty enough and people could have bullied you or people could have called you fat and that was your micro trauma and then you learn to sort of self-soothe with food as opposed to learning how to soothe yourself in other more healthy ways. So usually when people are
Right.
doing the long way around answering your question is that I find usually when people are binging, there's other issues at play. It's not that they just are out of like people like to say, oh, I'm just out of control with food. No, but why? There's a reason.
Hmm. So there's always a deeper meaning to the, yeah,
Absolutely.
for
So
sure.
it's finding that deeper meaning and then finding healthier strategies to deal with what that issue was.
And then so at Repetition Fitness, what do you do? Like, what are the different types of services you offer?
Okay, so I used to own a studio. Like I used to own a physical space, and I owned that for almost 7 years, which was fun and exciting. And it was a space for it was a I call it was more like a women's wellness center because we did a bunch of stuff. It wasn't just fitness. It was a place for women to commiserate. We talk shit about our husbands and moms and whatnot. Not everybody was a mom, but it was a space like a community space. Now, the pandemic didn't help matters. I've sold the physical space, and now I'm sort of more in alignment with what I actually want to do, which is the holistic physical training, which embodies not just physical fitness and work on physical aesthetics, but it's self optimization, meditation, breath work, there's food freedom coaching in it. There's affirmations. There's mantras. There's a bunch of different stuff that involves in the holistic physical training program. I deal with, like we talked about, food freedom. So it's the anti-diet nutrition coaching. And then, like I said earlier, we are doing luxury fitness retreats for the first one in October, and that's to Bali, Canggu, Bali.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
wow.
very, very excited.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
So for the holistic training, you mentioned affirmations. How important are affirmations?
Um, I think they're super important, and it doesn't mean that you have to get up and forcefully say, I am beautiful, I am amazing. I like it's not that. It's just it's kind of I like to think of it as a reminder of things that we should be saying to ourselves regularly. I feel like our negative talk drowns out our positive talk. Like if you were to tap into somebody's mind, you'd probably tap into them talking about like how bad their ass is or how this is and how how bad they are at their job and how I just feel like we are overrun with negativity in our mind, and it kind of plays on a feedback loop. And very rarely
Yeah.
do we talk positively about ourselves. And it's more or less sort of, and it may not be all day, because even for me, it's not all day, and I work on this a lot. It might be moments in the day where you're making a concerted effort to be more kind to yourself. Like and also when you realize, and also that self-awareness, when you realize and you're going down that rabbit hole of negative thinking, how can you sort of stop yourself and vibrate higher? And you may not be, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to go from down here to up here, but it's like, can I reach for a little bit of an elevated emotion? Can I even think of something I'm great? Like, I'm very, very grateful. God knows that, especially during this pandemic, that all of my family is healthy and my kids are standing upright. They're safe and they're healthy. So we reach for something that's a little bit higher than the way you're feeling now.
Right. Super important too to remember to be kind to yourself because yeah,
We're
that
all, we
sometimes
all
the
exactly. We're all being very rough and hard on ourselves. We're our own worst critics. It's a real thing.
yeah, for sure, for sure. What are some easy ways for us? I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but what are some easy ways for us to kind of include exercise in our daily
Well,
routines?
this is something I had done a video about, because I didn't talk about this before, that I had done a video about probably a few months ago, and I got a lot of positive feedback on it. One of the easiest things to wrap our mind around with working out is that it doesn't have to be, and I think this is sort of what we've been conditioned to believe. You don't need to work out for 60 minutes. You don't need to work out for 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be like, I feel like some people are like, like, screw it, I'm not going to do it because, I don't have an hour. I don't want to do it for an hour. Excuse me. You can do what I call micro workouts, because you sometimes, we've all seen those people when the gyms were open that would just be like, they'd be there for hours, but they would just be piddling around. And not to sound judgy, but it's like, yeah, it was great that you could say you were at the gym for 2 hours, but what did you do? You know what I'm saying? So you can do like a 5 minute, 10 minute, like balls to the wall, hard workout, and get it in, and possibly work harder in that 5 to 10 minutes than maybe you would have in an hour. So a mental way to sort of encourage yourself to start moving a little bit more is saying, you know what, look, I don't love working out. I'm going to find the thing that I hate the least, and I'm going to do it for 10 minutes, balls to the wall, and then that's it. And you can still be super, super effective doing a micro workout.
Mm, awesome.
And then back to what I was saying before, find stuff that you hate the least. So if you don't like boxing, like I said, don't box.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And how do you stay committed? Because you are doing, I mean, you're training for another 100-mile
Yeah.
race, and you're doing a whole bunch of other different things. How do you stay committed?
Well, I don't know. I have always had, I have a lot of other things wrong with me, but I have a lot of other issues, but having that ironclad mindset isn't one of them. Like I'm very much like, if I set out to do something, despite what anybody says, I'm going to do it. So I've never had that issue. So you can apply it to whether it's running a very long race, whether it's starting a business, whether it's leaving teaching, because I got a lot of flack for leaving teaching, because you were like, what do you mean, the pension, the this, the that? So I find that with me, that's not that much of an issue, because I've always been that way as it relates to various other parts of my life.
That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
And then what is your why? Like, why are you doing all of this?
So my why has to center around women largely. It always has. And it's sort of, I'm committed to helping women see their value within this world, and their value as it relates to them, without anybody telling them who we should be, what we should be doing, and sort of an unlearning, or miseducation, as Lauren Hill says, of what we've been taught, what's been shoved down our throats from the beginning of time, especially as it relates to, in this instance, it can be for all women, but particularly for us, because we are Black women, just those rigid confines of those of beauty standards that we were taught, that was, you know, that we have to stay within that realm, and just understanding that no, beauty is whatever you want it to be. You can do whatever it is that you want to do in this world in terms of your career, in terms of who your partner is, and also the importance of, I know self-care is a word that's been bandied about over and over again. People roll their eyes, but I like to say self-preservation. Like, remember when Naomi Osaka, she was like everybody's hero when she said, no, screw it. I'm not going to do these interviews before the French Open. And she was like, fuck it, excuse me. She was like, screw it. I'm not going to do it because, you know, it casts doubt in my mind. I want to have some time for myself. I want to take a beat myself, and everybody, like, they talk or whatever. And, you know, a lot of women were like, finally somebody, a woman who's like high elite, said, screw you, I'm going to take time for myself, and I'm not going to let you tell me, cast any doubt in my mind, or tell me what it is that I should be doing, thinking, or feeling. So really understanding, as women, we've been taught to like put everybody ahead of ourselves all the time, at every turn, whether you're a mom, whether you're not a mom, it's everybody comes before you. So it's really making sure that we have an understanding that no, self-preservation is not selfish. If you feel like you need to take 2 days off and do nothing, you shouldn't feel guilty. Take the 2 days off and do nothing. If you feel like you need to sleep for, in the middle of the day, which I do, I'm a nap advocate. I don't care what the is going on. I'll go nap if I want to nap. Just doing you, and not letting society tell you anything about yourself.
Mm. Yeah. That's important to remember too, because as you said, whether you're a mom, sister, auntie, whatever, as a female, we are always doing the most for everybody. Right?
I've said, even during this pandemic, the amount of women who had to turn into teachers. I don't know how old your daughter is, but it's like women were taking the brunt of this pandemic. Not to sound like a man basher, because I'm not. I love men. I'm married to a phenomenal man, but it's just the fact that, because I largely work with women. I heard these women talk, and I'm thinking they were doing everything. So I'm talking about working their regular jobs and also homeschooling their children. So it's like we are conditioned to believe that we're supposed to be doing everything, and that's not the case.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely had us thinking, very differently. This pandemic has changed, I think, the whole world in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But as women, for sure, we're out here because, you're at home. So you're cooking more, you're cleaning more, you're doing everything more,
You're doing everything. You're the maid, you're the teacher, you're the garbage, you're everything. And it's like, and people were still feeling guilty. And it's like, why? Why does this, and I will call it a burden of the household, rest completely on your shoulders? Why should it? It shouldn't.
Yeah. Definitely true. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's hard to even think, because we're so conditioned. It's such a conditioning that it's hard to even feel like we're doing the right thing by taking that nap.
And that's what I'm saying. It's such an self-preservation. It's an unlearning. It's an unlearning. Yeah. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take us some time. But I always say to people, if you're tired, sleep. Why are you doing all these things? Like, if you're tired, that rest. Don't feel like you have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Right. So important. What else do you have coming up besides this race that you are training for, that, we're going to be cheering you on? What else do you have coming up?
Yeah, so I have, like I said, the Women's Wellness Retreat coming up. I have, obviously, that race coming up. I'm very excited because I've been getting a lot of new and exciting, obviously, I love the people that I was working with before, but it's like an evolution. I'm starting to work with new and different types of women, of female clients, which is very exciting to me. So just working with a bunch of new people. Like, I've said to a couple of my girlfriends that I had manifested, because I'm huge into manifestation and just being in alignment with what it is that you want out of life. And I had manifested, I just want 3 clients a month. That's all I need, whether it's financially or just in terms of service people appropriately. I just need 3 because the program is heavy. And now I have 5 people coming on 6. So it's like I feel like once you sort of leave one thing, it creates space for you to do something that you're really meant to do. So yeah, just working with people and learning more about myself and learning more about how I can really be of service and be of more help to particularly women. Like that's how the food freedom whole sort of concept, and I didn't create it obviously. I can't take credit for that, but that's how it sort of came up into my world, is that just sort of listening to women over the years talk about how they've been failed by all these diets and sort of thinking of different ways to actually be of service to them. So I feel like right now I'm actually being of better service to people without hanging on to my old physical space. I let go of that, and now I actually feel like I'm helping people and being of greater service to people. Yeah, so that's it.
Wonderful. So talk to us about how we can stay in touch with you. And if we are looking to, join any programs, how do we get in touch?
Well, since you asked, girl. So you can go on my website. So I have a new and improved website. So it's repetitionsfitness.ca. All the programs are up on there, and you can also contact me on there. My phone number's up on there. Email is repetitionsfitnessstudio@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram at repetitions or fitness. I'm on Twitter at repfitness, but I don't really go on Twitter that much or post on it. I'm also at Facebook, so everything is basically Repetitions Fitness. If you Google Repetitions Fitness, various ways will come up for you to be able to get in touch.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And I did see you on the social. You were doing a couple of things on the social. How was that?
You know what? I've been one of their fitness experts for the past 4 or 5. I think it's been 5 years. I've been on there 5 years. It slowed down definitely during the pandemic because it's a little bit more tricky because we can't be in studio. So I think the last time I did a segment was a couple months ago. I think I'm doing another segment within another month with them. But it's amazing. They're great women with great mindsets, and it's like it's kind of working with them is kind of in alignment with what I enjoy doing. So it never feels like work to me. It never feels like it's a task. It always feels like great going and connecting with those women. So I'm very excited to the day we'll be actually able to go back in the studio with them. So I do enjoy doing that. And also, I mean, let's be real, it's great exposure for me. It's a high rated TV show. So it's been very good on that front.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Big up yourself on that one, girl. That's a nice one.
Thank you.
So I will give you the last word.
Yeah.
Let us know if you have like a motivational quote or anything that you go by.
It's not necessarily a quote because I was thinking about this. It's not necessarily a quote. This is the first thing that came to me. So I don't know if you've read The Four Agreements. I've read
Yes.
Don Miguel Ruiz, right? That's who wrote it. I've read that book many times. I'm huge on audiobooks, so I largely listen to audiobooks. I've listened to that book on audio several times because I always feel like when you read something of such importance and so heavy, you have to go sort of reread it and digest it and unpack it, and then you got to go back to it again later on because maybe 6 months to a year later you're in a different mind space. So Four Agreements resonate with me, so I wrote them down so I didn't mess them up. So if some of your listeners haven't read it before or heard of it, they're 4 basically like tenets of life, and it's like most of the stuff that resonates with people. That's like, oh my god, that's so. It's like simple stuff. Yeah. We've complicated things and muddied the waters, but basically, first of the 4 agreements is be impeccable with your work. Second is don't take anything personally, which is very hard for most people, including myself. Third one is don't make assumptions. And the fourth one is always do your best. And these are great, obviously, for humans. Like you tell your children and just for anybody. Those 4 agreements, I'm like, yeah, obviously. They're so simple, but they're so bang on. Like it's so true.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like going back to that intuitive nature as well. Yeah. These are very simple things that are just So important.
So important, so simple, but yet so important. Obviously, be impeccable with your word. All obviously, always try your best. And I feel like don't make it so many like negative things or like outcomes or disagreements wouldn't have happened if we didn't make assumptions. You know, oftentimes like if
Yeah.
something happens or if I don't hear from somebody, in my case, we'll keep it to business. If I don't hear somebody in business and I've sent them an email or whatever, and I don't hear, I start making all these, I make up stories in my mind as to why I haven't heard back from this person. I'm like, oh my God, they don't want to work with me and they must have heard whatever, whatever. Maybe somebody told them they had a negative experience. And I'm like, and then, you know, it doesn't always work out this way. You'll get an email like maybe 3, 4, 5 months later and they'll be like, oh, you know what, sorry, I was really busy. I meant to contact. And, but meanwhile, you know, back at band camp, you've been like making up all these stories about what it is this person was thinking about you, and it was, you know, it couldn't be further from the truth. So don't make assumptions is one of the biggest things, and don't take things personally. To me, is one of the two that resonate with me the most.
100%. I could agree with that. I mean, our minds could run off on a tangent, tell a whole story, and you're just like, then you have to be brought back. Like, okay,
And
that was just you making up a story. Like, stop it.
exactly, right? 100%. Go down that rabbit hole of like, oh my God,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, I want to thank you so much, Nadia. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it
you.
so much.
Oh man, it was a blessing to have you on here. So I appreciate
I
that.
love
And I'm going to be following up. I want to see this race. I want
oh,
to see the
oh.
footage from this race, girl. I'll be cheering
So
you
I might
on.
listen. I'm broken up and just talking all kinds of mess after the end of the race. So I don't know.
Well, this is your fourth time. You're a pro. You're a
I
pro.
don't
You're a pro.
know. You know what I said about like sometimes you feel like you're a first time runner. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. You know.
You know what? When's the last time you did it?
You know what? Because the pandemic, I haven't been. I think the last race I ran was October 2019. Because last year there wasn't really anything going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, well, you know what? You still got it. You still got it. Even though you're starting back, I understand the mindset, but
yeah.
you know you got it.
Thank you so
You
much
know you got it.
for and thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for what you do. Like I think that the platform that you've created is beautiful. Like even like when we first sort of connected, I was looking through some of your stuff, and I think what a beautiful way to sort of like um, you know a way of helping people sort of get out what they're doing and also sort of bring awareness to the community as well. Like I think things like this, such as your platform, are really, really beautiful and very, very helpful for people.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's amazing.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. All right, girl.
Okay,
No problem.
okay.
You take
But
care. Have yourself a wonderful evening, all
you
right?
too. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Wow, guys, yes. I mean, I've read the Four Agreements, and if my cousin is in the chat right now, Nikki, she gifted me this book, The Four Agreements, and I've read it so many times. I have the Four Agreements written right on my board over there, and I'm constantly looking at those Four Agreements because they are the truth. Like, there's just so much truth in that book. You definitely, if you haven't read it, you definitely need to read it. But the first book that we were talking about, when I seen that she was going to be running this 100-mile race, I instantly thought of David Goggins, and I just literally finished his book, Can't Hurt Me. And if anybody is interested in, if you've read anything, if you know anything about David Goggins, you definitely want to read this book. Now, he does a lot of interviews. You'll see him all over YouTube. He's been on so many different podcasts talking about his story. David Goggins is a beast. But his mindset is serious. And one of the things that Nadia was talking about is never arriving. Always having that mind frame where you're starting from scratch. Like this is, like she's saying, this is a new race for me. I'm starting from scratch. I'm about to run this race, you know? Such a good read. This guy is amazing. Okay, so I'm encouraging all of you guys to pick up the book. There's the audio book, and I heard the audio book is even better. I haven't actually listened to the audio book, but he is, I believe they're going back and forth answering questions after each and every chapter in the audio book. So I really want to get my hands on, or my ears into the audio book. I'm definitely going to tap into that next, but I'm telling you, two great reads that you guys definitely want to get involved with. Yes, audio is better. That's what I've heard. I heard so many good things about the audio, and so I definitely want to listen to the audio. I definitely do. But such a great conversation tonight, guys. I want to encourage you all to go out there, push yourself to do something that you love doing, to get yourself going, build that momentum, and remember that repetition is the key. So to anything, any kind of growth, you got to continuously do it to push yourself to get to that point where you're like, okay, you're kind of on a roll, but always remember that you are just starting from scratch. Bring yourself back each and every time that you're doing it and continue to build that up. David Goggins says it the best. Like, he honestly does. Like, never having arrived and keeping that mindset with no ego and no negativity. Got to make sure that you're always keeping it positive. So the 4 agreements will have you in that line, making sure that you're thinking positive, you're not making any assumptions, you're always impeccable with your word, which means 100% truth and honesty at all times, being tactful, having discretion, all of those good things, and just trying your best. Always trying your best. And that means really trying your best, not just saying that you're trying your best. It means actually really trying your best. And so I just want to encourage you guys, it is almost the end of the month. We've got like 2 days left. If you've made any goals for this first half of the year, because literally this is the first half of the year, like gone in a blink of an eye, right? So if you've made any goals for the first half of the year, you want to make sure that you're going back to the goals that you've made. What did I say I was going to do? I do on my list of goals, what needs to be revisited, what needs to be, tossed out, what do I need to, make sure that I revamp so that the next half of the year I can get it done. If you are making weekly goals, monthly goals, whatever it is, you got to go back to them and always relook at those things to make sure that you're on target and you're meeting your expectations of yourself, right? And also I want to encourage you guys not to look anywhere else but at yourself and what you can achieve and your greatness. Never look to the left or to the right of what anybody else is doing, because half of the time they don't understand what's going on in your life, right? You got to do you. You got to do what's best for you. I always talk about this unique fingerprint that we all have. You've got this unique thing. You got greatness. You got to make sure you tap into your greatness and do your thing. All right, guys? I just want to thank you for joining me today. This is What's the 411, where everybody's story matters. And I want to thank Nadia again for coming on the show and sharing her amazing story with us. All right, guys. See you next week. Same time, same place. All right? Take care.